Hey folks, it's Nick Granville here. Sorry I haven't been on the net much lately. We've been busy travelling. I'm currently in Brissay in France. We're here for another couple of days and then back into the UK and going to Ludlow to catch up with my friend Simon King. We're going to stay at his place for a couple of weeks and check that out while he's away. And we'll see him for a little bit. But I thought I'd do a quick lesson and just sort of discuss some of the stuff you would have seen in that intro, particularly chromatic playing and how to add a little bit of chromatic spice to your playing. Or just, at least this is one approach. There's many approaches. This one is just one that I found really, really useful. A good place to start. Start by we're in the key of B flat. I just had a one chord vamp just there. So we're in the key of B flat, so we have a B flat 7 chord. Sort of build around that. The arpeggio that would go with that would be B flat, D, F, and A flat. Right, so if I play that all the way through the neck. Alright, and we have this. If you want that D as well. So that's just a B flat 7 arpeggio, really simple. I should say 7 means dominant too. If it's major, you'd say major 7. If you just say 7, it means dominant 7th. Now the thing with that, a really good place to start to get some chromaticism in your playing is just to add one chromatic note below every note. Right, and if my next note would be D, I'd play a D flat into a D. An F is my next note, I'd play an E into an F. Now Django Reinhardt did a lot of this stuff because he had 2 fingers that he used primarily and sort of part of a third one. And he'd do things like... And stuff like that was sort of became part of his vocabulary. That's kind of not what I'm talking about so much for gypsy playing, but you could use this in a funk context as you heard before, but also kind of more bebop orientated things, although to me it doesn't really sound like bebop, but you could. You could use it in a rock setting and a blues setting for sure if you wanted to get into a bit more colour with your blues playing. But that's one way to sort of start approaching it. That's what I did there. And you get an interesting kind of sound and phrasing to your playing. So that's an enclosure. What I've done there is I've taken the D note that I want, I played a note above and a note below, which is a classic bebop device. We'll get to that one in a minute. So that's one chromatic note below. Another approach you could take is to take 2 chromatic notes below. And that can create a nice way to get up to there. Of course, you can do 4 chromatic notes. The key thing is that the note that you hit has to be a chord tone, or on the downbeat or on a strong beat. So beat 1 and beat 3 are a great place to start. 1, 2, 3. That landed on beat 1. That's my beat 1. So that's 4 chromatic notes. You could have 1 chromatic note below, 2 chromatic notes below, 3 or 4. Any more than that tends to be a little bit overboard, but even 4 is a little too much. Now you can approach from a note above. I tend to find that it has less, it's less interesting. For me, below up works really, really well because it has a forward motion about it, whereas if you play a note above coming down, that's kind of a downward motion, and that to me is less powerful. But it's more powerful to have a forward motion with it because that's really what you're trying to achieve when you're using chromaticism, isn't it? You want to push the music forward. So a note below, that's definitely a really good place to start. 2 notes below and just work that until you can really get it going. Now, of course, I'm just dealing with a 1 chord vamp. You could do this on a blues. Next chord of a blues would be an E flat chord. See that it sort of takes on an interesting kind of a way of doing it. It's kind of like weaving in and out of the sound. That's how I look at it. You could do this with altered chords, any kind of chord. But the key thing is to start with, you got to know the arpeggio, and then you start working on playing a note below and moving up to it. Now you could do this with chords as well, and you should do this when you're comping. You know, it's a really great way to comp. If I just do this. it's kind of going to get boring after a while. I could go 1, 2, 3. So see there, I played three chromatic passings up. 1, 2, 3. To get me to the 4 chord of the blues, but however you want to use it. But again, it's the same kind of concept, right? Essentially just chromatic passing. So we dealt with it with arpeggios, now we're dealing with it with chords. But it's a good way to spice up your playing, and you don't need to do much with this. The way it was taught to me is it's kind of like cooking. When you cook, you might put a little bit of pepper on some food, and it can bring the food to life and make it really interesting tasting, more flavorful, you might say, rather than interesting. But the thing with this is that with pepper, if you put too much pepper on, you can't take it off. You've ruined it. It's the same thing with this. Too much chromaticism and it starts becoming like, it's just a trick. You want to use these things like their colors. You use a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of things to all kind of make up the point you're trying to make. Yeah, but that's a cool way to kind of spice up your blues playing, your funk playing. Your jazz playing, of course, is going to involve this kind of thing. But yeah, try it. Try learning your arpeggios, chromatic note below, moving into it, and see how that improves your playing. So the gear I'm using for this, I've got my Ibanez Talman, complete with tuner on the headstock. I know Bruce will kill me for that. Sorry, Bruce. It's Bruce Foreman, by the way. So this is a Talman Prestige. I'm also using this Fractal AX8 amp modeler, and a new addition is this Laney IRTX, which is basically a little 8-inch speaker with which is designed for these fractal things, and it sounds awesome. I love it. This thing is more than loud enough to play with any band, and it sounds great, and it's light and portable and all of those good things. And I'm playing in this beautiful barn. This is from the 1600s here in France, and I've been recording a new record in here, so I've been loving the acoustic. You can probably hear there's a bit of reverb around my voice and on things. Right, you can hear it's very, very nice in here. This barn is huge. It's got to be 30, 40 feet high, so that's the sound I'm using. I'm doing Skype lessons at the moment while we're traveling, so if people want to book in a lesson, just hook me up on Facebook and send me a message, or on my website, www.nickgranville.com, and we can book in a time and kind of go further with any of the stuff that I've covered in any lesson. Anyway, hope everybody's well. We'll talk soon. Cheers.